And we are live. Everybody, I am a human. I'm co-founder of RevGenius. I'm Jared Robin. Welcome today, but we're going to be learning how to build agents. So I want to give a minute or two to let everybody come in. And as everybody comes in, let's do a couple icebreakers. How many of you have built an agent for your go-to-market motion yet? Put a yes or a no in the comments. And then also, quick housekeeping and whatnot, drop your LinkedIn links. And I'm seeing a lot of no's in here, and this is great. You all are coming into the right place. For the next minute, you're also able to drop your LinkedIn links in. There's no promotion outside of this, but I want this to be an extension of the community. So connecting with people out that they've met on a webinar, the most underrated way to network. There's so many like-minded people in here. Connect with them offline. I'll put it here. But to frame up today, before I pass it to our amazing guests and hosts, we realize that everybody is building with AI today. We also realize that there's not an easy playbook or game plan that's just given to you. You can't just put it close to just put it in ChatGPT, right? Like build this. But right now, the learning is essential. Our partners at Explorium came to us and they're like, oh my gosh, we see this massive gap and we want to help the RevGenius community solve it. And I said, absolutely. So this week, today is learning how to build n8n agents. Thursday, we have a Vibe GTM hackathon. So hopefully you're learning today and you're hacking on Thursday. And there's some incredible prizes like Amazon gift card and a ton of credits from our partner Explorium. But I want to bring up Omer, CEO of Explorium, along with Jane Farris, the head of data science today. They're going to be walking you through making this easier for you. Welcome.
Hi. Pleasure being here. Very excited. Cool. So let me share a deck first, just to introduce myself. My name is Omer, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Explorium. We're super excited to be here and kind of talk to the RevGenius community. This is amazing. Jane?
Yeah, great to meet everybody. I'm Jane. I'm head of data science here at Explorium, working with the company for a while, helping our clients use external data to power their AI agents. So excited for the conversation today.
Cool. So let's kick it off. We prepared obviously a deck for that. Kind of the topic of what we're going to talk about today is how to build go-to-market agent with n8n. Just to give you a brief about the company and who we are and what we do, Explorium is a provider for infrastructure and B2B data. What we do is aggregate more than 50 different sources to harmonize them into a single layer that you can then interact with. We call that the fabric, which means that you can interact with our fabric and get any information that you want or need for your go-to-market use cases, all the way from contact information, social posts, all the way to 10K, intent data, all of that in single integration. We also have an MCP, and Jane will will show you how you can use APIs and MCP in order to work with agents and kind of play around with them. Just to kind of go over kind of the agenda for today. First thing that we'll talk about is kind of what we call custom-made versus ready-made. There is always a dilemma whether or not you want to build your own workflow to buy kind of a ready-made workflow from one of the For example, the vendors. That's the first one. The second one, we'll talk about what is the role of external data and specifically B2B data in go-to-market agents, how go-to-market agents actually use data in order to be successful. Then Jane will go do an overview on 3 different workflow that we use internally, and we're actually going to share the template with you guys. How you build a meeting prep agent, and then an inbound agent, and finally an outbound agent. Lastly, we'll talk about go-to-market agent hackathon. As Jared mentioned, we'll have a hackathon on Thursday, and we're super excited about that, and we'll talk about how that's going to work. And then finally, if you have any questions, we'll love to answer them. Okay, so let's kick things off. So the first thing that we're going to start talking about is first, kind of, I'm sure that most of the people here actually have that dilemma when they're trying to kind of figure out what to do and how to use and kind of how to use AI and how to use agentic workflow. The question is, should I build my own using workflow automation like n8n or maybe Clay, or to actually buy something ready-made coming from companies like Swan and Salesforce? All of the companies that we mentioned there are a customer of ours, and kind of what we're seeing that from Explorium perspective, we see that as a continuum. We're seeing that any company can be on that continuum, at any point in that continuum. In many cases, we're seeing companies having some of those workflow built internally, custom made, because they believe this is better for them, or they can customize the workflow exactly to what they need. And in other use case, to actually use ready-made workflow, ready-made products. I think that dilemma is very interesting one. But if you think about kind of all of the advancements that we had in the last year in actually building your own workflow, there's definitely a case here to talk about, what can you do now with all of this workflow automation system that was created in the last year and kind of the advancement there. And definitely there is a case to actually build it yourself. Something that took, months or years, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, now can be done within a week. So that's definitely something that you want to consider and think about that. When you're kind of addressing that issue of custom made versus ready made, the first thing that you need to think about is what are the advantages and disadvantages of any one of those options. If you think about custom made, the best or the most important advantage is that you can actually tailor-made your workflow exactly to your need. This is where you can shine. This is where your secret sauce can be effective and actually create the conversion or the success of a specific workflow that you want to use. That also means that it's adaptable. Any workflow that you build within few days, weeks, or month will need to change. That's part of who we are. We always adapt. We always change. Any company that is not changing is in a big trouble, especially nowadays. So the option to adapt your workflow easily is a super important one. Independent, there's no vendor lock. I'm sure that most of you have stories about how you started with the vendor and then within a year or two, it's triple the price. That's something that is painful for everyone, and that's definitely an advantage. And then in many cases, it's simply more affordable. If you build it yourself, in many cases you can reduce the cost. On the other hand, when you're thinking about when to go about and kind of use a ready-made approach, then in many senses it's cost-effective in a sense that it's easier to set it up. From the minute that you don't have anything to the minute that you have something, it's usually shorter time, less painful, and less expensive. Quick to deploy. Those type of company have their own system to deploy. They help you do that. It might be a solution engineer that you meet. He set everything up to you, and you can already start using with a certain workflow. Supported. If something goes wrong, you give a call, and usually some will, especially the company that we mentioned above, all of them will come to you and kind of help you, support you in this particular use case. And then finally, those type of companies actually work with many companies, and they have the know-how and how to work in this particular space. So definitely worthwhile to think about that and kind of see how they work. Let's jump into, now that we understand kind of how that works, kind of custom made versus ready made, and kind of making that decision, let's also talk about what is the role of external data in go-to-market agents. I think that the main thing, and I think I'm hoping that everyone will agree with me here on the call, on the webinar, is that your agent is as good as the data that feed into that agent. So if the data that you provide to him is clean and organized and everything is, in tip-top shape, then the agent will have a much higher probability to actually be successful. On the other hand, if you feed into that data that is not clean, unclear, different duplication in the data, missing points of data and so on, the probability of your agent to actually work well is very low. And that's kind of a huge issue that we're seeing. So definitely when you're building your go-to-market agent, data is a critical point that you need to consider, and how do you feed that data into the agent. Now, when we meet with builders and we meet with dozens and dozens of agents every week, of builders every week, one of the things that we're seeing is that some of them are actually using only web data. So they only use Google or Bing in order to pull the data into their go-to-market agents. And from what we're seeing, it simply isn't enough. The main reason for that, there's two reasons. The first one is entity matching. Entity matching means when you're trying to search information about a company like Microsoft or Amazon or Google, it's pretty easy in a sense that they're a big company. They have lots of different data online. Then the problem is what type of data. They have troves of data online. How do you pull the one that you actually need to? That's kind of the first one. But if you're dropping into kind of lower tier or maybe smaller companies with 100 employees, 1,000 employees even, then you get to a point that not necessarily the query that you're sending to those search engine will result in the right company that you want. Just to give you an example, Amazon, we all know the e-commerce giant, but there is also a company named Amazonia, which is a small consulting company in Singapore. Obviously, if you look for Amazon, you'll get lots of information. But if you look for Amazonia, in many cases, you won't find the data because the search engine will be confused and not necessarily will point out to the right data. So the entity matching is a huge issue, and the messiness in the data is the issue that is created when you only use web data. On the second piece is actually limited data coverage. There is lots of different data points that you can find not online, that online you can't actually go about and reach them. For example, technographic. If you think about what type of technology a specific company uses, and you want to know that information because you want to use that in your outbound email, you actually wouldn't be able to find. In most cases, you won't be able to find that online. So you actually need other data points in order, other B2B data points in order to feed that to the agent. What we're seeing is that the successful agent, those agents that actually are able to outperform the current processes that those companies are using, is actually using a mix of web and external data. They're using the web in order to pull different type of information. For example, maybe the positioning of a specific company if you want to try to sell them. However, they also use external data points from B2B provider like Explorium and others in order to understand more about the company, things that not necessarily will be able to find online. As I mentioned, technographic is one of them, but intent data is another one, and maybe search for all of the people in the design department in a specific company is not something that you can actually do on the web. So actually mixing those together is kind of the ideal solution. Why unified data wins? What that mean? Why do you want to, as I said, why do you want to mix both web and external? Because that gives you three main advantages. First, you have a broader context and accuracy. Now you can know much more information. You want the intent, you can get the intent. You want to know kind of the social profile of a specific person. You have all of his information, past experience and skills and so on. But you also about the accuracy, as we mentioned, the entity matching is the issue that you want to solve. So those two is critical. Timely and trusted intelligence, in many cases where you go to the web, the data that is retrieved not necessarily is up to date. It's actually important to make sure that the data that, in order for you to trust the data, you want to know that the data is being refreshed every X amount of weeks or months, so you'll know how to focus on that. The third piece, is improved personalization and targeting. If you're looking to write a good outbound email, what you actually want to find is to try to find why a person in company A is interested in your product. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to find this magic link according to any data point that you can find, both internal and external, in order to understand why a specific person will want your data. It might be that you'll find in the 10K, imagine that you want to sell a cybersecurity platform. So it might be that you'll find that in the 10K, they actually mention that one of the threats to the company is a cybersecurity threat. That is actually a really interesting point where you go about and talk to a CISO, for example, or say information security within a company. But I can give, 100 more example of how data points can actually point out to a specific need, a company needs. That's kind of my part in this. We'll meet again later on. Now I'll kind of move the mic to Jane, that will guide you through some of the workflow that we build internally, and kind of work you through how we build that, and kind of anything you need to know in order to build those yourselves. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Omer, for leading us through why external data is so powerful, especially in the agentic space. So for those of you who maybe joined late, I'm Jane. I'm head of data science here at Explorium, taking our customers through using external data to build their workflows, whether that be in n8n, in Zapier, lots of different places. Today, we're specifically going to focus on go-to-market use cases, and I have 3 different actual agents, live examples to show you guys where we can start to use agents and external data to really save us time, prospect better, whether that's on the company or personal side. So lots of different options for building AI workflows. My personal favorite, and what we're going to focus on today, is n8n. This tool really gives a lot of flexibility, but I'm also working with Explorium's MCP and our endpoints and Zapier and LangGraph and other infrastructures. So we're going to start off today with an agent, a meeting prep agent, followed by an inbound agent and an outbound. So I'm going to share screen here, if you'll bear with me for a second. Awesome. All right. Now that everybody's seeing my screen, we're in n8n. So high level here, it looks a little confusing. We have what looks like a very complex agent, but we're going to dive into the details and show you that this actually isn't super complex, and we can enable you to use Explorium's endpoint and use n8n as a tool to help with your go-to-market use cases. So the first agent that we're going to walk through today is this meeting prep agent. So all of our agents, and these are templates, by the way, that are within n8n and also on our website for you to play around with after, and please feel free to reach out with questions. They have instructions for setting up, so you can plug in your API keys, play around with the tools that you might want to connect to, and there's nodes along the way that's with note cards that explain exactly what the agents are doing, as well as what to change within them depending on your use case. So if we zoom in here to the beginning, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with n8n, but essentially we need to start this workflow with a trigger. So the goal of this workflow is going to be to research upcoming events that you have. So I get to my desk in the morning, I look at my calendar for the day. This AI agent goes through all of the meetings, extracts which ones are external, extracts all the attendees of the meetings and what companies they work for, to populate information about those individuals as well as the companies, and give me a research brief that can be sent to me. In this case, we're going to show an example via Slack. So really helpful whether you're a go-to-market SDR, account executive, somebody looking to vibe prospects. That's going to be really helpful, but it's also helpful for individuals like myself who are technical. Maybe we're not the most detailed at going through meetings and being prepped and briefed on the individuals. So to get a nice tailored explanation of who's on the call, what their potential pain points might be, and how that actually impacts the business that I'm working within. Awesome. So starting off here at the beginning of this agent, as I mentioned, we need to start with a trigger. So just to show you the capabilities within n8n, there's lots of different trigger options that you can have. So you can have manual triggers, you can do a schedule, you can even set up a webhook. A lot of our clients use our events data through a webhook in order to get real-time push notifications of an external event on a person or a company. So there's lots of flexibility within n8n to pick a different trigger for this AI agent. currently what I have set up is a schedule. So every day this runs in the morning, it looks ahead of the Google Calendar, which you can also customize to be Outlook or any other software that you might be using, and extract all of the meetings on your calendar for that day. So you could do this if you wanted it to run weekly, for example, look at all the meetings within the week, or maybe just in the next hour. Lots of customizable options here. So you can see within this Google Calendar events node, we have all of the different events on my calendar today. And there's a code node here with some JavaScript. No need to be scared. Obviously, AI is helping to write a lot of this code these days, and it's all within the template, and extracts the meetings on the calendar. So for this particular demo, I have a very important meeting with NVIDIA, with Jensen, the CEO. Of course, I should be prepped for that kind of meeting. So it automatically pulls all of my events and can determine which ones are external events. So it's doing that by using, the company domain. So I work for Explorium, so it's using explorium.ai and excluding any meetings with any internal users who I don't need a brief on. Once we've gone through and extracted what meetings are external, the workflow splits off into two nodes. One of them is going to be to enrich the companies with information about what's going on at the company right now. Are they at events? Are they hiring? What products are they offering? All that good stuff. And on the other fork here, we're going to actually research the individuals on those meetings. So personal things about them. What are they posting about right now on LinkedIn? What, given their role, might be relevant to the discussion in our summary. So let's start off here with the company side of things. So zooming in. So what we're going to do is extract from the individuals the domains in this code node here of where they work. This is going to be a key identifier for us to match the external data that Explorium brings to the table. So at Explorium, the way our endpoints work, we have first an endpoint to match a business to an Explorium entity ID. So here you can see within the node, we're selecting it shows all of the different options for Explorium's endpoints. We have matching to get a business ID, enriching to get external data, fetching, meaning you want to generate the businesses as opposed to matching them, and event data, which can be in a push or enrich format. And we also have an autocomplete, so you can see all the different values of our endpoints. So here, now that I know that I am meeting with NVIDIA, it's going to extract the website of NVIDIA and match it to one of our Explorium IDs. Once we've matched it to an Explorium ID, we're able to now take that ID and enrich it with the full suite of endpoints that we offer. So really start to learn more about NVIDIA, what they do, what's going on right now, what are some events that might be relevant. So, for example, at Explorium, we have lots of different endpoints. So if I click here, you can see that I'm signed in with my Explorium credential. This is really easy to get and authenticate. You can just pop in here your API key that you get, and then you can pick how you want to work with us. So now we're going to be enriching in this next step here, and you can simply, with our community node, simply just select which bundles you're interested in. So in this particular workflow, we're enriching companies with firmographics, technographics, but if we wanted to understand other things at the company, we could add information like the competitive landscape, workforce trends. So are they hiring a lot? Maybe they're hiring in certain seniority levels or departments. If they're really expanding their engineering team, that might be something interesting to look out for. LinkedIn post is another really powerful external endpoint of ours to understand, what is actually going on in the community of the company. So we're able to pull in all this external information on a company and feed it into a company research agent. So this agent is equipped with Anthropic's Claude, but you can pick any LLM that's, whatever your favorite LLM is. I like Claude, so we're using that today. And our Explorium MCP. So beyond the company enrichments that we already added, like the firmographics and technographics, you can leverage the MCP as a research intelligence tool. So equipping this AI agent with anything else that might be relevant for company intelligence. Once we've got that, we're all researched on the company, what's going on at NVIDIA. We're able to come down here into the prospect side of the fork. So now we're going to enrich the actual attendees of the meeting. So we're creating a list of all of them, and we're looping over all of them one by one to enrich them. So a really similar process to how you enrich companies is how you enrich prospects. So on the company side, or on the individual side, there are a lot of different things we can match on. The email is the most common identifier, and since here we have a calendar invite and we actually have their email in the calendar, that's a great way to enrich them. But other options, you can also enrich, for example, the person's name and the company they work at if you don't actually have their email address. So again, similar to the business side of things, we need to first match the prospect in order to get an ID back. So in this node, we're selecting Explorium's match endpoints, and we are enriching in order to pull back the relevant information here. Great. Once we're sure that we have an ID, right, on the individual, and that's what this if statement is here, then we're going to enrich those prospect IDs that we just got. So we can enrich with lots of different things like contact information, maybe their professional profile, LinkedIn posts as well, and feed these all into a research agent. So again, an agent using Anthropic's Claude, as well as the Explorium MCP, to pull back information about those individuals. So you can see here that we have a system prompt, which is going to pull relevant things like their LinkedIn activity, their career progress, any pain points, and extract how this prospect could be relevant to the meeting that I have later today in the company that I work for. So the agent knows that I work for Explorium. It knows information about Explorium and what the meeting could, and what we sell and what my meeting could be about. It also knows information about my attendees and the companies they work for, and it can give me a tailored output as to what might be relevant for the meeting. So it finishes looping back into a merge section where we're merging the company and the personal information and sending it to Slack. So I love Slack. It's a great tool. I find things get lost in email sometimes, so I like to have my briefs of my meeting sent to my Slack, so it's just all right there in one place. So I'm going to share screen here, switching over to my Slack tab briefly to show you the output of this workflow. So you can see here, for my meeting with Jensen Huang at NVIDIA today, we have information that is formatted in a way that's easily digestible. This is also very customizable as well. Like you can output it wherever you like. You can output it in different formats. So maybe if you are more of an email person, you could get it to your inbox. Or if you like to have it in Salesforce, that's another common like end place of this research. But looking in Slack here, we have information about the company, what tech stack they use, if they have any changes on their website, so maybe they're pivoting their focus, or they have large announcements, and potential pain points and how Explorium could potentially solve them. So you can put yourself in the shoes of your own company and imagine here that it would be giving you an idea on how to essentially pitch yourself to the company on your calendar and how there might be a synergy to work together. There's conversation starters, fit reasoning, and then information about the person too. So you can go in, maybe you can see what school they went to, throw in some reference to maybe a sports team or something that they're interested in for some brownie points on the call, and also information about the conversation, how you could tailor it based on what's going to be the most interesting to the attendees you're talking to. Awesome. So I'm going to flip back over to my agent screen now. Awesome. I see a question in the chat about how do you get the tech stack also as I'm changing screen. So as I showed in the agent, you're able to define what endpoints you want to get once you have the business ID. And our technographics data is one of those endpoints. It wasn't explicitly laid out in this workflow, and that's where the power of the MCP comes into place. Is by the time it gets to the AI agent space, the MCP is also leveraging additional Explorium endpoints that weren't explicitly laid out within the workflow to pull back more information on the company, like the technographics that might be relevant to the conversation. All right, now I'm going to switch over here into our inbound agent. So again, another funky spaghetti looking workflow. This one's a little bit more linear. So I'm going to zoom in here. So inbound leads can be hard to manage, right? Especially if you're getting a high volume. One of the most common use cases we see with inbound is prioritization of leads. So specifically, we use Salesforce at Explorium. So it's important to make sure that you're using whatever tech stack works with what you have at the company. So maybe you're working within HubSpot or Zoho or your own homemade CRM. You want to be pulling in leads into n8n from wherever that work stream is. So whether that's using one of the predefined nodes within n8n, or you can also just use a general HTTP request in order to pull that information in. So this workflow is going to start within Salesforce. As I mentioned, that's where we are working. So I'm going to pull up here the Salesforce report and I see it's logged me out as we've been talking on this call. Let me pull up the Salesforce report. Awesome. So we have this inbound lead list that we've gotten. So you can see where the lead came from, their email, their first and last name, where they work, and all of these leads are unqualified, and it can be a task to go through them all. So we want to go through and prioritize, see which ones are the most relevant depending on where the person works and their title, but also more impactful information in terms of timing. So are they relevant in general, but are they relevant now, right? Has there been a recent event that has occurred that makes this lead a hot lead? Maybe the person was just promoted. Maybe the company just released a product that is in line with your offering. These are the types of external enrichments that we can add on to prioritize these leads. So going back to the workflow, we're going to import this Salesforce report with this HTTP node here. And we're going to extract all of the different leads. So there are two different things that will enrich off of these leads. We're going to enrich information on the individuals themselves. Again, where they're working, information from their LinkedIn. But we can also enrich them with any maybe company usage data that we have. So this particular example, these individuals, they're inbound leads, but they're inbound leads from our free trial. So we know how they're acting within Explorium's environment, what endpoints of ours they're using, what their behavior looks like. So another interesting use case as well to understand not only is this person a good fit, but how are they interacting with us and what are they trying to interact with. That's going to give us, more context when we're reaching out to them to work with us. So let's start off here with the information about product usage. So in this node, once we've extracted those leads and brought them in from Salesforce, you can see the Salesforce report appears exactly as it did in Salesforce here after using some JavaScript. And we can use identifiers to enrich with the product usage data. So at Explorium, our product usage data is at what we call the tenant level. And so we're able to pull the tenant information from this report and query Databricks, which is where our usage and BI summary information is. Now, you might be leveraging Datadog or Mixpanel. There are a lot of different ways to pull in usage data depending on what tools your team is using. So once we're able to pull in information like about the number of endpoints that they're using, what endpoints they're using of ours, you can see here, those are the two different metrics that we're pulling in. Then we can hop over into the other loop that's happening in parallel, which is that external enrichment piece again. So we've extracted the business names of all of the different companies that were in our inbound lead list. And now we can enrich those businesses. So first, again, starting off with matching to an Explorium endpoint. So here the identifier that we're matching on is the company name, as opposed to previously where we're matching on the company website. Once we have a valid business ID, the workflow moves into our firmographics endpoint, enriching these businesses with information about what industry they're in, maybe the description, information about how many employees they have, how large the company is. These are all key factors to deciding whether this is a good quality lead for me and high priority. So if you're focusing on very micro SMBs, maybe you want to set a filter to focus on companies that have a smaller yearly revenue range, or their distribution of locations is small. Maybe they only operate in one country. There are lots of different options to kind of target your specific ICP here. So once we have all the company data enriched as well, the loop is going to finish and merge back with that usage data that we brought at the beginning. So now that we've got lots of enriched data added on, we can see it here actually. We are going to move on to the AI agent. Awesome. So now that we've got the Salesforce information, the AI agent is going to leverage our MCP and Anthropic again in order to determine what level priority this lead should be. So is it high? I should get to it now, as in it fits my ICP perfectly. And maybe it even has some events currently that make it a hot lead now. So we're able to have the prompt here, which feeds in information from the endpoints, the usage data, the firmographics, and also some information about what makes a good lead for Explorium. So the MCP will also leverage any additional endpoints and determine essentially a fit assessment for this lead. It then moves on to another code output, which cleans it up and makes it a little bit more readable. We all know that AI generated text can sometimes be messy or unclear. This is a code node that structures it into a way that I feel is very readable. It even has some emojis, some breaks, some things like that. So, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So you're able to customize the prompt however you like. Great. Now, the last step here is to output this data that we've learned about the inbound leads wherever is easiest. So typically we store information about leads at Explorium within our Salesforce. So this particular workflow is actually sending the enriched data back to Salesforce as a task. It makes it really easy for the assigned account executive to get a notification about the information that has been populated about an inbound lead that has just come in. Tasks are set up uniquely within Salesforce. So here particularly, we just put all the information into one field, but we also have a lot of clients who build customized tasks and structures within their Salesforce or their other CRM tools. Another popular one is Outreach, really any email software. This is a common place for the data to sit. So now I'm going to open up here what the final task looks like within our Salesforce. If we open up it here, you can see that this particular lead is a medium priority lead. And we have a nice brief here about it. So we have the information pulled in from the top fork of the n8n workflow, which is the endpoint analysis. So we know that this company, School Lab, this company, School Lab, used our business firmographics. They used our competitive landscape information, our strategy data as well. So we know that they've interacted with a few different of our endpoints, which is awesome. They're definitely a hot lead. But their company profile isn't typically within our ICP, and I think that's why it's scored a little bit lower here. So we also have some information as well to learn about this company. It's a mid-sized consulting firm. We can learn about the actual individual as well who was at the company. If their title, are they a decision maker? Again, were there any events recently that have happened that would make this a potential fit right now? With some also recommended actions and talking points. So let's say that this is somebody that I indeed want to reach out to. I'm able to have a guideline to different topics that might be relevant for them. So market validation data, for example, was one of the data sets that was identified as a potential interest based on their usage of our API as well and what the company focuses on. Awesome. All right. I am going to hop on over to our last agent, which is our outbound agent. So outbounding is, a tricky use case. We see it a lot. There are a lot of different ways to outbound. Everybody has their own personal preferences. This term vibe prospecting is very hot right now as well. Today we're going to show an AI agent that uses natural language to prospect. So it's really easy to use this interface within n8n to type in what you're looking for and automatically get a tailored drafted email to your inbox that you can manually review and send to the prospect that was brought back. So right now, if you're going into Claude or you're playing around in LinkedIn or ChatGPT trying to find leads, it can be hard to get their contact information. It can also be hard to understand how they might be a fit. And so this tool allows you to find the leads, find valid email addresses to reach out to, and actually draft an email based on how your services might be relevant to them. So I'm going to start off by opening the chat here, and you can see the example query that I've put in. You can type in anything you're looking for. So this might be, I'm looking for, decision makers at consulting firms, and we're using natural language to interpret what, decision maker means in terms of Explorium's job title, taxonomy, and seniority level, as well as any industry information you might put on a company, how that translates into our categories. It is all handled within this workflow, making it a really, digestible way to leverage our data with natural language. So this particular example, we're asking to get 2 marketing leaders at fintech startups who joined within the past year and have valid contact information. So there's a lot in there, and this workflow breaks it down and outputs the relevant individuals. So the first thing here is once a chat message is received, it feeds into the AI agent itself. So this, again, is integrated with Claude as well as Explorium's MCP to take what the query was and translate it into valid API calls to Explorium's endpoints. So because we're looking for individuals here, we're probably going to need to fetch prospects, one of Explorium's endpoints. They're also looking for information about making sure they have valid contact information and they joined in the last 2 years. So different parameters within our endpoints that you can specify that the AI agent is automatically going to extract. So this is the AI agent node, which has our MCP attached, so you can so it can leverage our tools, and a system message as well, prompting it that it is an expert in generating prospects for outbound reach. So once the AI agent determines what the relevant API call is to make to Explorium, we have this step here to actually validate what that API call is. So you can see here, we have all of the different parameters within Explorium's prospect endpoints that we can query. So we can filter for prospects based on what industry they work in. So things like maybe their Google category, their NAICS code, LinkedIn industry is another popular one. Maybe we want to search by firmographics, like how big this company is, what their revenue is, how old they are. Region is another popular one. And then there are a lot of things on the individual level too we can filter by. So do they have an email? That's obviously critical here since we're drafting emails in this workflow. Where have they worked previously? What their job level is, all that good stuff. Awesome. So we are going to move over once we have a valid API call. So this node here essentially is validating whether or not the structure of the JSON output was correct or not. And if it's not correct, it's going to send it back to the AI agent to retry and come up with an API call that is successful. After that, we have a valid API call that we can make. So we're actually going to fetch the prospects that match our query. So here, that's going to be finding marketing leaders at fintech companies who joined recently and have valid emails. So you can see the fetching was successful. And we actually found some individuals here, like this person, Mohammed, who is a chief marketing officer, and all of his skills and information about where he works so that we can start to tailor an outreach email to him. So once we've pulled the prospects from Explorium's fetch endpoint, we have those IDs, and we can enrich those IDs with lots of information. Here we have our contact endpoint as well as our professional profile selected. LinkedIn post, you could also enrich with two to understand what they're sharing on their LinkedIn that they're interested in. And then it's going to loop through all of the prospects that were brought back. So here we asked for 2 marketing leaders, so it's going to loop through 2 individuals and send them into 2 different AI agents. So the first AI agent is going to research the person and give all of the context to a second AI agent that is going to actually write the email. Sometimes, asking an AI agent to do several tasks can be, a tall order. And so oftentimes we find splitting into 2 different agents that each have their own specializations produces the best output. So here we have one that's specifically focused on research and another that's specifically focused on crafting the most tailored email. Both of them leverage Claudes, but again, if you're using OpenAI, maybe ChatGPT or Gemini, those are also options within n8n. It gives you a lot of flexibility in the tool. So once we have researched these particular individuals, you can see here is all the information that has been researched about this CMO named Jessica. We have information about what software she's familiar with. So she's worked with Salesforce, with Snowflake, ZoomInfo, as well as information about her work history. All of that good stuff. It's being fed into this email writer to craft a tailored outreach that fits the needs of what you're trying to sell to them. Great. So once the email has been written, the last thing is to output this. There are a lot of different options to output this drafted email. I particularly work within Gmail, so this actually created a draft within my Gmail. But if you're using, MailChimp, Lemlist, Outlook, these are all different options, and there are tons of different nodes within n8n for you to work with. So now I'm going to show you an example of what the drafts look like within my Gmail. So opening up my Gmail account here, you can see it drafted 2 different emails to 2 different individuals that were brought back. So all we asked for were 2 marketing leaders. And here we have drafted emails outreaching that are tailored. It even mentions the Explorium, the Explorium MCP. as well within here, and why it might be a good fit to work with us. Now, we're wrangling in the power of the AI agents here by only setting these as drafts. So I still have manual review. I can tailor the email. Maybe I want to have my own personal greeting at the end. Maybe I've done some of my own research, but it gives me a really great starting point for outreach. You know, I started a few minutes ago wanting to tackle the fintech industry, finding decision makers within marketing and valid emails. And now you can see we've drafted those emails to those individuals with a good structured email on how we could potentially be a good fit. Awesome. Now, it's been great to show you live how these work. We are at the end of the 3 different agents, so I'm going to hand it back over to Omer to wrap up, but looking forward to see how you guys work and interact with the agents and answering any questions about them.
Thank you, Jane. That was awesome. I love seeing those workflow. You can be so flexible, interesting with them, and do kind of things that you feel are right in your kind of specialty, and how you bring a special source of what you know how to do into that. So thank you, Jen. That was awesome. Jane and her team are the expert in the company for n8n and kind of how that works. Now it's actually a good time to talk about kind of the last couple of minutes to talk about our hackathon. We have a hackathon on Thursday in 2 days. The idea is actually to allow all of you to come in and try it yourself, try to build the n8n workflow. Jane and her team will be there as well, be able to help you and kind of make sure that anything that you're doing or anything that you'll be able to ask her and how to do that. And she can guide you through everything from how to call the data, what is the right way to loop on the different prospect, what is the right way to create the sequence, all of those good stuff. So, definitely worthwhile to do that. I'm very excited about it. To make sure that we're all winning and there's excitement, we also added prizes to the hackathon. The first, there's 2 prizes. The one that the judges will define the best one, the best workflow, and also the one that we're able to get the best interaction on the social media. Each prize is with 50,000 of our credits, so you'll be able to use it to anything that you want, and $1,000 in Amazon gift card, so you'll be able to run and use it. Couple of things that you want to watch out. First, in your inbox, you should be all the template that we just went through, the research agent, the outbound agent, and the inbound agent. All of that should have kind of links in your email already, so you'll be able to reach out. We have a Slack community that you'll see in the inbox itself, that in the link that you'll be able to join. Anyone that joined will also have free API key to Claude to play around with it and kind of add that to the workflow. I think that will be very successful. You'll also get a coupon code for to get more credits with Explorium, and free as Anthropic key, as I said, if you're joining our Slack community. I'll leave some time. We have about 8 minutes or 7 minutes to questions. So if someone want to ask something or join the stage, I'll be happy to answer. And Jane, I'll probably need your help here. I saw a question about. I'm sorry. That's. Do you, I see that the email is yet to appear on my inbox. I think that it's right in the end of this this session in 7 minutes. You should, or 6 minutes, and so you should be able to see it. I can't see the. Okay. So the one question is about that someone is using Clay and kind of what is the advantage of doing that with n8n. So as I said in the beginning, Clay is one of our customers, so we work very closely with them. They're an excellent platform. There is different advantage of actually using n8n in the sense that n8n is more generic, in a sense it can do any type of workflow, not necessarily something that is specifically tailored to what Clay know to do. And if you're using n8n and then you need enrichment, then probably Explorium is an easy option to do that. We definitely have customers that do both. We work with Clay on one hand and then use n8n on other. But I think that the kind of, if you're doing a general purpose workflow automation, then n8n probably is a bit better. Thank you for that. There's good comments here. In terms of outbound sequence, we can help you with that. I suggest for you to come into the hackathon. We'll be there and kind of help you guide that through. I see a question about any idea about how to set up outbound sequence. We'll be able to help you that with in a hackathon. There's another question. Do you do any propensity scoring if you give your feedback to the lead? I'm choosing several questions from the chat. In terms of propensity scoring or actually feedback loops, and you want to have a specific company that you want to add, that's possible. It's a bit more complicated because you need to kind of keep track on all of the input that you provided, but definitely we'll be able to help. I will also add that to the hackathon.
Adrian asked, pricing wise, is this more cost effective than Clay or about the same?
Well, depending on what is your usage, but in most cases it will be lower, much lower. We don't have a platform to actually maintain. We only maintain the data, so the price is accordingly.
How amazing of a session, guys. I'm looking through here to see like what we might have missed. It seems like everyone's like really, really leaning in here. And yes, Clay could get expensive. Jane, can you show one of these workflows in action? Not today. Are we going to be able to do it during the hackathon maybe?
For sure. In the hackathon, we'll help you guys run it and we guide you through it for sure.
The templates are also great. So I know sometimes an n8n workflow can look monstrous, but there are instructions within it too. And especially if you're using the tools that were already in them, you can just authenticate often with Google authentication and get it set up live for yourself.
And building workflows and agentic workflows and stuff, it's interesting once you go down that rabbit hole, how possible it is to build a lot of the point solutions in the space as well, or like aspects of it that work for you. The 1 or 2 or the top 20% that works for you, the rest you don't use, you could build that, mix it with, a different signal from a different tool. We talk about signal so much, but et cetera. And you could build it around your own use case. So what I always like to say is when somebody releases, and this isn't any shade or anything, but like with folks that release point solutions, that's in their point of view. They've met with a lot of clients and all of this, and they built the right product for most. But when you're using n8n or some other similar products to start building things yourself, that's in your point of view. So you could build it directly for your business and build it autonomous to learn and fix and improve. Well, improve with feedback loops, right?
I think that what we think about the Explorium as a continuum, as I said in the beginning.
Yeah.
We see companies that use kind of off-the-shelf product to do one workflow and then build custom-made workflow to kind of tap into a specific advantage that the company have. For example, if you have a PLG a product, you can use the log in a much more coherent way if you do that custom and use kind of exactly how, and similar to what Jane showed, what type of endpoint they're using, and then kind of analyze that in order to make sure that the email that you're sending is right to the point. And I think if you do that with a off-the-shelf product, it's harder because they need to understand the logs better and something that already as an owner. So I think it's just a mix and match type of a thing. You need to choose what off the shelf you're using, probably in things that you don't feel that you have advantage, and then tap into that advantage by building custom workflows specifically to you.
And the power of your workflow is based on the data.
That's true. The better
We're so
the data.
excited. Anyway, we're just about out of time. If you haven't registered yet for Thursday, please do. RevGenius.com/Explorium, spelled exactly as you see it on the screen. And, as Omer mentioned earlier, this will be on demand soon enough. We are out for today, but we're not out for this week. We're excited to see you on Thursday, everybody. And thank you to incredible partners, Explorium. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Omer. Your company has built a tremendous data source for the whole AI movement, and it's really amazing to partner with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously the partnership is amazing, and we love working with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I think we're